Frank Rubino and is spreading it on the record tonight. I don't see any way that we can have Frank serve us as he has in the past, as diligent as he's been individually in his office collectively. If he were to continue as I read it, I'm sure that's what Andy had in mind, he would be in violation of the code.
Yes, I agree.
So I hate to lose you, Frank, because you and your office have been very, very significant help to running this operation. But under these circumstances, where there is a pending complaint against the mayor, you have, as I see it, very little choice.
Yes, I would agree.
Andy, you read it initially. That's your feeling as well?
Yeah, it's not a may provision, it's a shall.
Yeah, it's a shall.
That's the way it is.
And
And we can draft a code, but we have,
It's a shell.
interestingly enough, the last time we met, someone raised the issue of special counsel, we kicked it around and so forth. It's back on the table. It seems to me, by reason of this provision, we can either proceed without any external help or rely on our own knowledge and abilities to dispose of the question. Andy is a top lawyer, so we have counsel in that sense. I've been known to get involved with the law from time to time. So, I mean, but, you know, if the rest of the board feels you want to think of special counsel, before we get to that, why don't we just adjourn ultimately to executive session and then we'll see. At least that's my view. Any thoughts on that?
When we adjourn to executive session, we are then excusing the members of the Corp Council, or then we have to?
yes.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, I
You're
understand.
then excusing
I don't want to
all
jeopardize
members
Frank's
of the
position.
Corporation Council while we go into executive session.
Yeah.
Does the board have any procedural questions while we're here? That we can...
Yeah, to the extent that we could tap into him. Well,
If I remember right, at the last meeting, if we wanted an additional counsel, the names came from,
There's a provision right
There's a
after that,
procedure.
there's a procedure for it in the next paragraph.
Right.
If we choose to go that
Show that
way,
card.
where it's another shall provision, it's not a may, and it basically lays out what we shall do if we want to pursue that. I'm not sure that we're required to, but we should talk about it.
right.
It's one of those-
discuss it, you know.
One of those provisions that you could read to say that we're obligated to do it that way. You could also read it to say, well, if you're going to do it this way, this is how you do it. So we haven't had that yet, and have to deal with it, so we probably should talk about it.
All right, well, Frank, if you would stay long enough for us to get into executive session, so if there is some administrative thing you can help us with, you or your office, we'd appreciate it. All right, so let's move beyond that. And there are no subcommittee reports that I anticipate to be offering, right? Ellen, yours is the only subcommittee that's extant, and that you haven't
We've taken care
started
of
to
that.
function yet. All right, so that's done. So let's get to new business. Andy alluded to new business. Is there any that should come before the board of any consequence, or even of minor consequence? I hear a deafening silence, so let's move then to old business. Old business, of course, the major, that's what we were talking about a moment ago with Frank Rubino and his office. That relates to the matter that is before us to resolve, and that is the complaint by Mr. Robertson against the mayor and his office.
Before we go into executive session, Judge, I think we probably could ask for some advice from the court counsel on the second part of that paragraph as to whether you've read it.
Of the code, you
Of
refer
the
to?
code, it says right after, as well as the entire office of the corporation counsel and special counsel shall be appointed to to advise the ethics board, assist in rendering an advisory opinion, assist in conducting an investigation, and assist the ethics board regarding administrative enforcement hearing and other matters relating to ethics violation enforcement. And then the next paragraph goes to when special counsel is needed, the procedure. My question to court counsel is they advise the board on reading that provision that follows on from the first paragraph that requires court counsel to shall recuse themselves. This is another shall provision.
There's
Special
another shall,
counsel
right.
shall be appointed.
Yeah, that doesn't leave us much choice if you read it that way.
No, we've interpreted shall in one sense, we have to be consistent with the second.
Mr. Rubino, you have a thought on that?
I've never dealt with this section before, and I read it the way everybody else reads it. I try to breathe some realism into these sections, realistic. If the board in its executive session, hypothetically, let's say the board goes into executive session and decides that it can resolve this without special counsel, does this require you to retain outside counsel anyway?
Well, you're an
Seems-
attorney. and
seems a
Mr.
tough
Johnson said
decision
we've
for
read
the
court
board to
decisions
make,
where
but-
shall is construed as may.
I don't want to,
I don't see
now
it
out of
either.
that discussion, only that the board interprets the code, and I don't, so, that's a tough one, of the, if you think about that, circumstances, that's a tough read, but.
Point is,
that's what it's-
I think that, prudence has to be read into this thing, or common sense. If there is, let's assume that we're all in agreement on a disposition of a given issue involving the mayor. What the heck is the use of expending public funds for special counsel that tells, yeah, guys, you read the statute correctly when you have an Andy McDonald on a board and a former judge? I mean, I welcome, confirmatory opinions, makes it our job easier. Oh, yeah, he agreed too. But if it's not necessary, why make the expenditure? So I don't know that it would necessarily require us in all circumstances to retain special counsel if you were faced with a situation where it's, I hate to use this word, it's 100% clear. It's never 100% clear, that's why we have lawyers to start with. But as much as clear as it could be, then why retain outside counsel?
Well, here would be my opinion, and I know this is, you might get a chuckle, but if the board is entrusted with interpreting this code, then the board would discuss this issue, take a vote, and I think that's what would be, how this section would be read. It would have to be done by a majority vote.
I agree with you
I think
there.
that's the only fair way.
And there could be, I think as the judge said, there could be two ways that we're looking. You might decide to get to a point as a board where you don't need necessarily special counsel, and then you may decide that you do reach a point where you need it.
I hear all that, and I'm comfortable with all that. I think that I'm not comfortable with this part of the conversation going really any further than we are right now.
On record, you mean?
Yeah, I'm not comfortable.
I mean, I think we ought to go to an executive session.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I think he is correct.
I think that's a very astute observation. All
Is that a
right.
motion?
So a motion to go into executive session.
I second it.
All right, all in favor, signify saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, that's carried unanimously. We're now going into executive session. Mr. Rubino, you do what you think is appropriate at this point without jeopardizing your status.
Let the record show that my staff and I are recusing ourselves.
Well, again, we want to wish you well in terms of the outside.
I feel good.
That's great.
Yes, we're ready. Oh, thank you. My office, I'll never get into it.
Later.
This is the letter.
Yeah.